Welcome to From the Mezzanine, a film podcast. We are Chuck and Matt, two guys from the Midwest who love all things film. Why would you want to watch us? Because we're not professionals, we don't trade opinions for special access, and we pay for every single movie we see and every single streaming service we watch. We're not here to shill meal kits, hair loss supplements, or read ads from a teleprompter for products that we don't even use. Starting now, we're talking wall-to-wall film and TV. Chuck?
Oh God, and everything much more than that. There's a lot of news this week, obviously. A lot happens. Goes without saying. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, we are our own men. Our money is our own money. And there ain't nobody, policing what we say except for maybe our significant others. And yeah, I guess hopefully a little bit more genuine, as far as that goes in the realm of transactional criticism. But last week we parted with a question about, what was your favorite Blu-ray or DVD special feature that you ever came across? And this is I knew exactly what I was going to say, but I guess I want you to go first. Because I'm just curious what your thoughts were on that. What made you bring that up? What had come to your mind?
Yeah, so I think I sort of subconsciously brought it up because of the new Judd Apatow movie releasing this week on Netflix. And I was kind of reminiscing about the glory days of Judd Apatow. And I was thinking about the commentary tracks on all of his old movies, the ones that he produced and directed in the late 2000s. They would be Knocked Up, Superbad, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Did he direct Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
No, he just produced it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's right. It was, I think, Nicholas Stoller, I want to say. But,
okay.
Yeah, those were sort of the golden age of Judd Apatow, and it's the commentaries. Have you ever listened to any of them before?
Never.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're pretty incredible because they try and cram as many people as possible
into the room.
Into the room, and it's the commentaries themselves are only half about the actual movie, but they kind of become almost like little stand-up sets of their own.
Okay.
They're really, really funny. They're always they always go super off the rails. I remember the one for Superbad. Judd Apatow kept scolding Jonah Hill because Jonah Hill kept swearing, and Judd Apatow's daughter was in the room.
Oh, come on, Judd Apatow. What's wrong with that? Your daughter doesn't hear you swear.
Yeah, it was hilarious because it was this is when they were,
younger,
probably 7 to 9 years old. And then the one for Forgetting Sarah Marshall, it was Knocked Up. It was Seth Rogen, Judd Apatow, and then for some reason Bill Hader was there.
Just for fun. Yeah,
just for fun. And he had a cameo in Knocked Up, but that was it. And after a certain point, the commentary just devolved into Bill Hader doing impressions.
Good.
And it was so funny. And they're always so hilarious because you can tell that they're drinking, and you can tell that, this was the height of Seth Rogen's dude weed phase,
Yeah, he was fully embracing the gimmick, as it were.
Yeah. So, they're great. And I always go back to them. I've probably watched them, 3 or 4 times at this point, each one of them. And that was mine. What about you?
See, what my mind went back to, I need to buy this thing again because it was one of the first special edition anythings I ever bought. It was at a Barnes and Noble, and it was the Memento collector's edition that looks like a psych evaluation and comes with pieces of paper and there's even a paper clip to hold it all together and shit. Okay. And the menus. Have you ever seen this thing or heard about it?
I think I've seen it. Yeah. I probably saw it the exact same place you did, but I haven't looked into it at all.
I lent it to a friend in high school, and I never got it back. And that's how long I haven't had this thing. I bought it like when I was a freshman, and then I lost it by the time I was a senior. But it was a bitch to figure out how to play anything, because it literally just used like pictures, like a psych evaluation test. So to open up a menu to like look at chapters, you had to click on the symbol of a book, for example. But it had this like path through the DVD that you could take, and it wasn't even on the actual. It wasn't even on the disc that had the movie on it. On the special features disc, if you followed a particular path through the menu and you did things backwards, like if you found like a series of images that kind of had a sequence, if you did them backwards, because if you don't know, if people haven't seen Memento out there, it's Christopher Nolan's movie that begins at the end and then tracks back to the beginning chronologically in reverse. And if you follow that particular path through the menu, it will activate a chronological version of the movie. So it's out of order, as the movie is intended to be. And you just kind of it's a very different experience to watch it, because the way that story functions, you don't realize how horrible and tragic it is until the end. But in this version, you get the horror and tragedy right on the go. And then the ending of the movie is still brilliant, because it always, like, it's like cyclical. It's always with him just like forgetting who he is and what he's doing and going, where was I? Like, what was I doing? So like that stays consistent, but it's just a goofy little Easter egg that I've never forgotten about, because I figured it out on my own. I didn't use the internet to find it. It was entirely by accident. I was trying to find something else, and I just kind of intuited it. And then when I realized what was going on, it blew my fucking mind. But that's the kind of thing that was going on with that. And I need to buy it again. It's cheap, $10 on Amazon right now.
Okay. Oh, you can still get like new copies of it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't put it out of print. That's good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it still is out there. And speaking of, I guess, Memento, Academy Award nominated film, did not win, but the Academy Awards, of course, happened, over the weekend. And to start with, before we dive into like the actual meat of it, I just want to, throw some piss on Sean Penn a little bit, because he threatened to smelt his 2 Academy, his Best Actor Oscars that he, apparently, I just remember how important it was that he won for Mystic River, because he had missed out so many times. And I'll never forget how fucking smug and satisfied he was for the Harvey Milk movie, when he won for that. Like you fag loving bastards, or like whatever he said when he won at the time. But like,
I remember that.
It just seemed like he loved these things. They defined him so completely. But he threatened to melt them down if the president of a certain country didn't get airtime to campaign the world for, a cause of some kind that I'm going to be vague about, because I don't even want to fucking, refer to it and support it in any way. But I'll just ask you, did Volodymyr Zelensky ever make an appearance?
No.
So now he has to fucking melt these things. And aren't there like weird arcane rules in the Academy where like you can't sell or melt your Oscar, like contractually as an Academy member, you have to return it to the Academy?
Yeah. There's all these rules, and they have to sign something that says that they won't do all this list of certain things to it. And yeah, this would probably definitely qualify for that.
Yeah. So anyway, he just might have to burn his membership card like some other person famously did in the last week, but we will get to that, I assure you, ladies and gentlemen. But the big winner, if they're winners, I guess there's 2 movies that really stood out from the field as far as what they took home, and the first was Coda. I should have made those all capital letters, but Children of Deaf Adults took home Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, won Best Supporting Actor, and it was just a big moment for deaf performers everywhere. And like what was the speech like? Was it tasteful when they won Best Picture?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, there was a certain cloud hanging over the evening, but
yeah,
but
we'll get to that.
It was good. Yeah, I mean, I had kind of talked about this 2 weeks ago about how this is kind of where I was thinking they were leaning, and it was. And you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world. I thought Coda was fine. I do think that this is going to be one of those movies where people look back on it and they're just kind of like, that movie won, really?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, well, that remains to be seen. But yeah, it was fine. I mean, that was kind of the as somebody who watched the entire ceremony, that was kind of the prevailing sort of word of the night was fine. You know, this is just fine. This is very generic. And then there was points in the night where it dipped into the realm of terrible, but yeah, we can get to the big one, and then there's other stuff I want to touch on too. But
yeah, like more specifically, I guess, you know, Dune very deservedly, I'd say, swept the technical categories for the most part. Cruella won for costumes for some fucking reason, but you know, the music, cinematography, editing, visual effects, the sound and production design of Dune was out of this world and stood out. You know, it probably would have done this well back in 2020 had it released then too. But did you have any feeling like Denis Villeneuve should have, you know, taken home something himself? You know, as a, you know, like did this movie deserve Best Picture, or Best Director even, or did Jane Campion really kind of have that to her own self?
I think she had that one kind of in the bag. I would have welcomed it if he would have won director. I don't know about Best Picture, just because, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it last week where, you know, it's kind of half a story sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think the awards that it won for were the ones that probably most deserved to win. The one, I guess, that's not, I mean, music, best music for Hans Zimmer's score. That's like the one on this list that's not like entirely technical. You know, it's a little more artsy. It's a little more artistic than the others, I guess. And yeah, that's probably the one that I would say it definitely deserved, because his score was incredible. And yeah, I'm perfectly fine with all the ones that it did get.
The Best Sound Oscar is deserved just for the Sardaukar throat singing alone, in my opinion. That, like, I turned Dune on just to hear that opening blim blom thing, like, because I'm still taken aback by it. That you would begin your movie with black, have some unintelligible alien speech, and then subtitles. You know, okay, I loved it. Basically. But if anything surprised you over the course of the night, what was it?
Yeah, so I think there was kind of two big surprises, and it was, the first one was Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Which really surprised me, because as you may recall, I said this movie ain't winning any Oscars. I really knew how to pick them this year. All the calls I made ended up going complete opposite as far as the acting awards went.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I feel like this is one of those years where yeah, and that's kind of what I hear, and I feel like this is one of those years where the award went to who transformed their body the most, basically. You know, and it's, you know, regardless of how her actual performance is, she transformed herself, and so let's give it to her. And so.
But Kenneth Branagh, like, winning Best Original Screenplay, they kind of rewarded him just for his longevity. That's another kind of theme of this. It's like, this one is for them, like Oscars, you know, like, because Jane Campion got her Best Director finally. Kenneth Branagh, I don't think he'd ever won anything, even though he had many nominations under his belt.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Yeah. And that was such a personal, you know, story, and it's a movie about film. So yeah, it seems fitting that he would win for this one.
Yeah, it does. But when you look at the competition, it's just kind of odd because, especially for like screenplay, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even look at the category they're voting for. They just say,
true.
they just say, which of these 5 movies was my favorite movie? And they don't even look at the actual subcategory they're voting for.
Yeah.
And this is the only reason that my eyebrow kind of turned up at this one is because it was against like Licorice Pizza and Power the Dog, and I think those both had better screenplays than Belfast. But
much denser, like content-wise for Licorice Pizza, and just the text. I can only imagine the text of Power of the Dog was pretty intense if I actually read that screenplay. Let's see here. Beyond that, though, the show itself, the show of the Oscars, was kind of wonky, because this was 3 hosts, which just meant that like all the jokes were 3 times as lame because I guess I didn't watch it. I didn't sit through the 4-hour experience, but it just kind of seemed like none of these 3 ladies really got a chance to get comfortable up there and get comfortable with the audience even. And I guess what was your takeaway from what they had to do?
Yeah, it was just weird because they only appeared on stage as like a trio, I think twice, and at the beginning, and then when they did this stupid skit where Amy Schumer dressed up as Spider-Man. But
I saw a picture of that. I just moved. I didn't want to expose myself.
But yeah, it was just weird because there were so many of them, I feel like each one of them only maybe were up on stage a total of maybe 5 minutes throughout the evening. If you took all of their, allotted time that each one of them was on stage. And
that's bizarre.
You didn't really get a chance to, know them, or they didn't engage with like the audience all that much. And it was just like really terrible jokes, a lot of stuff where they kind of wink at the camera about how like, oh, look how liberal we are, and, stuff like that. And it was just that. I mean, but it's kind of like always. I mean, I would say the only time an actual like hosting gig has been successful in recent memory is all the times that Ricky Gervais hosted the Golden Globes.
I have been rewatching like his run of Golden Globes, like monologues and all of his bits. Yeah. Especially in context to what we're going to talk about, here in a second. But good God bless that man. I miss him. But he burned the house down in 2020 right before the world came to a standstill. So, but he kind of laid it all out there. It's like, none of this fucking matters. We're all gonna die. Come up here, get your statue, thank your agent, and fuck off. That's what should happen. But this is about navel gazing. This is about industry promotion. It's a business moment more than it is a celebration of anything artistic. And then
the condensed awards, this is something that I really hated, and I don't know if you were aware how they did this, but they presented these awards in the hour before the actual event was televised. So they basically presented them as people were filtering into the auditorium.
We're typically, when the red carpet is the thing being aired, they were recording, canned segments.
Yes.
To just play. How much time did they really save if this show was still almost 4 hours long?
Yeah, it didn't work at all because it was still so long. And they even it was so weird because what they did is they let the person get up and give a full speech. But then when they televised it, they only played a completely out of context, 10-second clip from that person's speech.
Will we ever see the full speech for any of these things? Are they going to put them on YouTube or something?
I don't know. I mean, they might have, but yeah, it was just so strange because it was just it was very out of context. And then the one thing I'm pretty positive they did, nobody seems to really have caught on to this, but I'm pretty sure they were showing shots of the audience for people who weren't even there sitting in their seat yet, people that were still out on the red carpet, because I think what they did is they got a bunch of reaction shots at the beginning of the actual televised part of the ceremony, and then they spliced those reaction shots into the clips of the condensed awards.
Yeah, because they were too busy talking to like, you know, E! Magazine, you know, correspondents on the red carpet about who they're fucking wearing while this stuff is going on.
Yeah, because they did it for, like, Andrew Garfield was the one that really stood out to me. And I was like, because at the same time that these actual, like, awards were going on, the actual full version before the telecast started, the red carpet was on TV. And they were cutting the shots of, like, Andrew Garfield in the audience when he was still out on the red carpet. So it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
God, I just want to say, like, he had one of the best reaction shots that I came across when all of that shit was popping off. He was checking his fucking phone. Did you see that? Yeah. He did not give a shit. And I appreciated that about the man. He's like, I'm gonna fucking win. I don't give a fuck. You know,
yeah.
Like, who am I going home with tonight?
Yeah.
You know.
And then the one thing I do want to shout out for, actually, I think that they did right, was that stage setup.
Yeah. I called it bizarre just because it's very unlike what the Oscars, I'm used to seeing the Oscar stage look like. Yeah. Because it almost looks like a tiered Golden Globe thing. They had people sitting at tables instead of in theater rows. I guess I haven't watched it in a while. Is this like a new addition, or has this been going on for a bit?
No, this is definitely abnormal. It's normally like theater seating. So yeah. But the way that they did this is when the people gave their speeches, they were out on like a thrust stage, like that smaller sort of teardrop stage. Mm-hmm. And then when they actually gave the speeches, they did a really, really like intimate camera angle where they went eye level with the person.
Oh, that's cool.
Like super, super close up. Like the camera, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't actually as close to them as it looked, but the camera looked like it was only about 4 or 5 feet in front of the person. So
powerful,
it was super,
lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool, I thought. And then they did all of like the stupid skit stuff on the backstage, like back by the large stage. And I thought it actually worked pretty well, because if trying to cut down on time was something that they were trying to do, that helps, because the walk that the person has to take from their seat to the stage is shorter. So, and
that usually ate up 30 seconds to a minute, depending on where in the theater they were sitting, how many people they needed to glad hand on the way up there. You know, like I just flashed back to Roberto Benigni literally climbing over Steven Spielberg, you know, in his effort to get up to the stage. You know, but we don't have that anymore. Like, I remember when that was like the controversial, shocking thing that happened decorum-wise at the Oscars. But like another thing that they did were the weird film anniversaries that were just nonsensical or unnecessary. Like the 28th anniversary of Pulp Fiction deserves like a minute-long blurb. Why? I don't get it.
I think what they were trying to do was structure those anniversaries around who was presenting. So they did the one for Pulp Fiction when Travolta and Thurman and Jackson were up there. And then like they did one for White Men Can't Jump. And
because Woody Harrelson was there?
Yeah, it was Woody Harrelson. Well, what's his name?
Is Wesley Snipes in the Film Academy?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. Good for him.
Wesley Snipes is there, and then oh god, who's the female lead in that movie? The Spanish actress.
She's Rosie Perez. Rosie Perez, yeah. Do the Right Thing. Pineapple Express. She's in everything.
Yeah, so they did it for that, and then they did this absolutely bizarre like 50th anniversary of James Bond segment.
Yeah.
Where Tony Hawk, Kelly Slater, and who is the other guy? Oh, Shaun White.
These extreme sports athletes. I don't think Shaun White had a video game, but I don't think Kelly Slater didn't have one. But so a surfer, a snowboarder, and a skateboarder go to the Oscars and they talk about fucking James Bond.
Yeah, and it was so hilarious because they tried to like incorporate it, and they're like, James Bond is extreme and we're extreme. Here's James Bond. And like, it was so...
that's like Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards level writing. Like,
was...
what the fuck? Like, and I know for a fact that God, what's her face, Amy Schumer, the hack comedian that she is, with the hack writers that she has writing jokes for her, she literally ripped off, someone's Twitter joke like more than once over the course of it. So it's like she hasn't changed at all.
God. Yeah, it was bizarre. It was because then they presented this James Bond montage, and I fully expected something to happen after that. Like, oh, we're gonna announce who the new James Bond is after this, but nope, it was just nothing. Yeah. So, and why don't you get the surviving James Bond people to show up and present that? Like, get Daniel Craig, get Timothy Dalton, and get Pierce Brosnan.
Did Roger Moore die recently? Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Roger.
Yeah.
He was my favorite, like, not as an actual Bond, but I just loved how much of a shit poster he was about being a former James Bond. But yeah, get Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, and like, who was the other one that's still alive?
Timothy Dalton.
Is Sean Connery dead yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He died like about a year ago, I think.
Okay. So. I just forget. In my heart, they're still living.
Yeah, it's weird.
It is kind of weird, but I guess that brings us to. I guess you have anything to talk about before we dive into the meat of what the evening had to offer.
The only other thing is the stupid fan awards.
That's
where
right.
the Snyder Bros co-opted the awards.
If it's a public fan vote, the only people who are going to win are the people that the neckbeards love. Okay, it's a given. Like, you do not let the unwashed masses vote on anything, because then you wind up with I guess like a movie that I do love, which is the Snyder cut of Justice League. But Army of the Dead, give me a fucking break. Give me a break.
It was so bad.
Was that even in theaters?
No, the only reason they did it is because the Academy said that they couldn't vote for the Snyder cut for that award, and so they used Army of the Dead as like a proxy, basically.
God bless them. Okay.
Yeah, it was so funny. But yeah, it was. I mean, in addition to that, so the most cheerable movie moment could be any moment from all of film history, and the ones that ended up winning were the Flash scene from the Snyder cut.
No.
The only one that deserved it, I think, was the Neo dodging the bullets from the Matrix. And then you also had the Avengers Assemble scene from Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
And
that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the other ones were just complete like head scratchers. It was let's see, what was it? The Spider-Man teaming up from No Way Home, a song from Dreamgirls.
Really?
And was that all of them? I think that was all of them. But yeah, and then the Flash thing. And so it's like, it just so happens that every greatest movie moment from film history happened since 1999.
Yeah,
like,
bullshit. Like, I'm thinking of so many fucking moments, like, just from like the 60s and 70s alone. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like, I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure if you look to the American Film Institute, you'd find a better like top 10 list of things like that. Like, because I remember them doing a lot of like TV specials where they would break those things down. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know, maybe like it's just a modern phenomenon that people literally stand up and cheer during movies, and that's why it was so skewed in that direction, because there was some actual like decorum. I think maybe not. I'm sure people cheered it during Star Wars. I don't know. Yeah. I do remember my dad standing up and yelling during Seabiscuit. I remember that happening, but that was in 2002.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it also has something to do with like nobody who voted for these things is over the age of 50. So
that's true.
It's like
that's very true.
It's mostly younger people, but
the recency bias. Because fuck, I can't think of if I was alive when Jaws came out and like open up and smile, you son of a bitch. I would have fucking stood up and cheered for that.
Oh,
you know, like how is that not on there? I don't know. Like as much as I love the Snyder Cut, it doesn't deserve that. Come on now, for all of cinema history, shut up, shut the fuck up.
And then the only other one I wanted to highlight was on the other fan voted award, the like fan favorites of last year. Number 3 was a very little seen Johnny Depp Japanese movie called Minamata.
Yeah, and it's I had heard of this movie, but I had never had an opportunity to see it.
Yeah, it's very.
He's like a photographer.
Yeah,
effective mercury poisoning in coastal communities.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
So I think there's something hinky going on here. I think this is a situation where a production company saw an opportunity to get their movie on like a larger stage,
and they botted it.
Yeah.
Either that or the internet, because that's the thing. This sounds like this is a netizen governed list, and for some reason, Depp has a lot of support online, you know, given his very public issues with Amber Heard and the weird, you know, he said, she said facts that swirl around that. So that probably played a lot into it. People being like, well, he's being blacklisted by Hollywood, so we're going to put him front and center.
Yeah. Maybe
that had something to do with it.
Yeah, I can see it.
I'll tell you what was been fucking front and center all week long, though. You know better than I do. I didn't see it. I was just curled up on the couch watching Winning Time, and in the middle of, you know, all the hedonism and basketball of that show, you messaged me to be like, holy fucking shit, are you watching this? Because, you know, Oscars 2022 Alopecia Boogaloo happened, and Chris Rock dropped a very benign joke that just simply pointed out, oh, Jada Pinkett Smith, you have a shaved head. Guess what? You're ready to be in G.I. Jane 2. It's not even that fucking funny. You know, it's let alone is it mean. You know? Like, Ricky Gervais said things, like, truly, truly hurtful about people, and no one ever tried to assault him on live TV. But, and Will Smith laughed. He laughed at the joke, saw that his wife wasn't feeling it, and then just rolled up on fucking, you know, Chris Rock like he's, I guess, like here's another image that I had to showcase that, you know, like the actual, like, oh, you approach, it's right out of JoJo. It's right out of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Oh, you're approaching me. And then, of course, the slap heard around the world occurs. And what was your thoughts as this happened? Like, did it wake you up? Were you half asleep at that point in time?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I mean, at first, everybody thought it was a joke. Like, I thought it was a joke. Everybody in that theater thought it was a joke, and a lame one at that. Everybody thought it was just a stupid, like, Will Smith, like, attention-grabbing, like, joke thing. And everyone thought it was fake too. Yeah. And then, like, the sound cut out for like 30 seconds straight. It was just 30 seconds of silence. And I just turned to my wife and I'm like, holy shit, I think this is real. Like, I think, like, why would they cut the sound for this long? Like, this is not planned. Yeah. And then once he started, you know, in the seat, when he was like, don't talk about my fucking wife or keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Yeah. Then it was like, okay, this is real. And oh my God, it was just like, it was so like cringy, and like just the rest of the night was a cloud hanging over the night. And when he got up there to accept his award and he started like trying to justify it,
did he really try justify? I guess I didn't actually listen to his speech.
Oh my God, you should. It was so in such poor taste. And then even worse, I think this is the real story in my opinion. Like, is everybody got up and gave him a standing ovation when he justified the slap during his acceptance speech. And it was in such bad taste, and it was so terrible. Like,
good Lord. Yeah, like what the fuck was anyone thinking?
Yeah.
Because as we have found out, there was things going on behind the scenes, like where they tried to get him to leave, and he refused to leave.
Well, I think at this point the story has changed. I mean, I guess we'll never get the real story at this point, but
yeah.
The narrative right now is that they told his publicist backstage that he had to leave.
That's what it was. Okay.
And his publicist said no, and the word never got to him, in person. And so, I
love this poster so much.
Yeah. But yeah, and then as of yesterday, he rescinded his Academy membership, sort of in shame, and they're investigating the incident, and I don't think anything's gonna happen. But...
No, like, because there was lots of. That's the thing. If he hadn't fucking done that, if he had just sat there and just let it slide off of him, but because that's the thing, like. How much do you know about the personal lives of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith? How clued are you into the pop culture of these two?
Well, I definitely am now. I mean, okay. I know about the cheating and the...
It's not cheating, it's an open relationship.
Yeah. and her, like, having sex with her son's friends and stuff like that, but... yeah, I mean, this is clearly a man who basically snapped, essentially.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, this is just like in that moment he left. He saw that she wasn't having it, and all he could think about was what she was gonna do. You know what I mean? Like, because he didn't stand up for her, and there was this like, and I think, I don't know, like, call me a sexist or a misogynist, but there's a fucking double standard here. That, like, because, like, I am a bald man, and if people are gonna make fun of me being bald, I just gotta fucking take it. Like, what can I say? I'm bald. Like, I wear a hat, sometimes I don't. It's on display, sometimes I hide it. But you can't get around it. So no one's weeping for me. Like no one's sticking up for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why was it an honorable thing for her to be stood up for? Because here's another fucking funny thing. This whole show is, like, sponsored by Big Pharma, and the next day there's this big press release about how they have this brand new, like, alopecia treatment, coming out. So, like, a part of me is just like, holy shit, this is all just promotion. Like, that's all that this is, because I didn't fucking know that she had anything wrong with her until this happened. I had no clue. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different, like, bullshit angles to take on this, to trying to defend him, like, they're like, make this about race for some dumb reason. But like, if we are to, as, like, take, people being exposed to certain things in media as a tacit, like, endorsement of it, you know what I mean? Like, we can't have too much violence, we can't have too much smoking. We got to be careful about who sees someone smoking a cigarette or a cigar in a movie, so we can't have it in movies, lest they be rated R. Then why should anyone be, molested in any way for telling a joke that someone didn't want to hear? Yeah. And I guess I took in a lot of the stand-up comic world, their response to it, like Tommy Segura and... what's his fucking name? He does the Flagrant 2 podcast, and he has a show with Charlemagne. I'm blanking on his name, but
I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull it up here so I can get his name out there, because he did an entire podcast wearing a suit of armor.
Okay. Nice.
In retaliation of this. And yeah, their whole take was, oh god, this is just gonna keep happening to us, isn't it? Andrew Schultz. Yeah. That's his name.
Okay.
Yeah. And because he did, like, a full, like, 2-hour-long roast of Will Smith and Jada, like, the day after the Oscars. And it was worth watching just because it was so ridiculous. But I guess, you take it away for a second.
Well, I think, like, there's some of the takes that people have had about this whole situation are absolutely like baffling. And I think that there's a baseline sense of morality and common sense that should enter your brain before you start thinking about your like politics and your, you know, your sort of personal biases and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's just a baseline common sense, and baseline common sense says a person hitting another person for making a joke is bad. It's something that shouldn't happen. And there's all these people whose brains have been so rotted by like their personal politics that they don't even think about like that baseline common sense. And they just immediately go to like, this is an assault on black men across the entire United States.
Yeah,
and it's like
the blowback to it. The outrage is the problem, not what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so ridiculous. Like, it's literally one of the first things you learn when you're a child is that you don't hit people. And it's just like, are your fucking brains so like melted out by your personal politics that you can't look at this and say Will Smith bad, Chris Rock good, or not even good, but Will Smith bad, Chris Rock not in the wrong.
And just keep coming back to the Dostoevsky had a book called, in Russian it's titled Demons, but the Western title is The Possessed. And it was, just about, like, I guess, ideological or political possession, where, not just an individual, but a whole mass of people are taken hold of by ideas. And when like you say, like you lose the plot, of reality, the baseline reality that we all exist in, then you start operating in one that only makes sense to people who think like you. And that's where everything just gets lost. Because like the fact that like the spit take by the Academy wasn't, because they have this big fat, like, they made a big deal about their code of conduct policies and whatnot, but there was a lot of weird shit that slipped through the cracks for a long time, and they made it very much about addressing the Me Too movement, because when Will Smith rescinded his Academy membership, he did it before they could take it away from him. But I was curious, like, who has the Academy actually kicked out? And it was people like Roman Polanski and Harvey Weinstein, and this guy that was like an actor who was in The Godfather 2. I couldn't remember his name, but they kicked him out back in the like 90s and early 2000s for giving away Academy screeners. He was handing out VHS tapes to people, and the FBI got involved, and then they kicked him out. And very recently, Bennett Miller's go-to cinematographer was somehow able to have multiple convictions for basically just like sexual assault of teenage girls over like 10 years apart. And he was able to have a whole career that, with lots of, like plaudits and like nominations and different memberships, lots of commercial gigs, and shortly he was like a gun for hire cinematographer. And it wasn't until 2021 that they finally got rid of him.
Oh wow!
But like, but that's what it takes. And I don't think they would have actually gotten rid of Will Smith. They're not, if he hadn't just pulled the trigger on it himself. Yeah. But yeah, we're not going to be seeing the Smiths at another, Oscars anytime soon, which I don't know how much of a loss that is. Because the Hollywood kayfabe of it definitely makes me, feel like this is like, there is an argument to be made. Yeah, this was engineered. This was all planned. They're all actors. They just all played it as straight as possible.
Well, they did get an extra 5 million viewers because of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
The Academy.
And lots of cachet in the pop culture marketplaces. Everyone talked about it, made memes about it. There are fucking songs that people have edited, just pitch tuning all the different like audio bits from the moment. And I enjoyed all the JoJo memes that came from it, because they just sprang forth like water from a fountain.
Yeah.
But Yeah, very unfortunate that this dominated the night, and it's sad that if this was an orchestrated thing, that this is what they could come up with to try and get more eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I guess I'll say on it is, as much as Will Smith is in the wrong, it's kind of a tragedy for him.
Yeah.
Because, like, this is a man who has spent the last 25 years engineering his career to be the most likable person as possible. And he's been after this Oscar for almost just as long.
Yeah.
And he threw it all away in a moment. Like, like his speech was absolutely, like, his moment where he was supposed to celebrate was absolutely marred by this. Everybody was still thinking about it, and it's all he could talk about in his speech. And so that was ruined. And it remains to be seen if his actual career will be ruined. But he threw away his image that he's been cultivating for so long, and it sucks.
It does suck. You blow it all. You spend like 30 plus years building, himself up into being like for a time, he was the guy in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. This man was almost Neo in the Matrix, and imagine if he had been, But yeah, to throw it all away for something as lame as I hesitate to even call that a pimp slap, because it didn't. That's also part of it. It seems like he held back just about as much as Chris Rock held back, because there was a fucking moment where Chris Rock almost, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna let it fucking fly now," but then he realized, I can't do that, even though the comedian in him probably fucking wanted to. And I do know that there was lots of pissed off people who spent thousands of dollars to go to his show. After the fact, and he made it very clear, I ain't talking shit about this weekend. And then he's like, I got a whole show planned. I'm going to stick to what I plan to, the bits I plan to do.
Yep.
And like you said, this man, it was a goal for a really long time for him to win an Oscar. He was picking movies specifically to try and, algorithmically decided almost what kind of roles he was going to take, because he wanted to get that statue. He tried having his kid in a movie. He did the Michael Mann biopic, route. And because he did Ali, right? I'm remembering that correctly. Yep. Yeah. And then he lost his way and, just went up his ass with Scientology or God knows what. And we wound up getting the unhinged moment that, took the world by storm and marred the night, marred a career. Remains to be seen what will come next, but he will never again, be up for an Academy Award unless some real work is done to, I guess, bring the culture back in his favor. Because right now, no one is down for it. Yeah. But if there was a true big winner, industry-wise, in that evening, it was Apple TV Plus. This is the first time a streaming giant has taken home the Academy Award for Best Picture, which surprises me because for some reason I thought it had happened already.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of misremembered that Roma won a couple years ago.
And that's exactly it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like one of those like weird, what are they called? Bernstein Bears things.
Yeah, the Mandela effect. It definitely, because I would have sworn that had won Best Picture, but didn't Quran just win Best Director for it? I think that was it. Then that's why.
And I think it won foreign film too.
And that's why it's misremembered. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting because their sort of big gamble paid off, because if people would remember, in 2021 they paid $25 million at Sundance for Coda, which was a record at the time.
Jesus. And
so it seems to be paying off now because their subscriptions have rose like 25% in the last week, and the viewings of Coda has risen 300%. So
that's insane.
It's pretty crazy. And the movie's been out for a long time, so it's crazy that it kind of picked up steam again around the same time that the Oscars were set to premiere last week. And but it's interesting. One little thing, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but one little thing I did want to make note of is I think kind of to give the greatest effect, to kind of do the most damage, there was a couple of Apple TV whistleblowers this week.
Oh yeah, I didn't actually click on that. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, they came out. They spoke to Business Insider, and they basically said that Apple TV Plus is being run on like a shoestring, and it's like a moment from away from collapsing, and their infrastructure is like very, very terrible. And I've got the exact quote. They said something like, the streaming service is run like an afterthought, and their Apple TV Plus's lawyers aren't entertainment lawyers, so they have no idea of like
they could be leveraging shit. Yeah.
And the thing that I've noticed, the thing that they brought up too in the article, is they are so bad at advertising their shows. Like Severance. I didn't know about Severance until like a month before it came out, and now it's like one of my favorite shows on TV right now. And they don't advertise, and stuff just seemingly appears on the streaming service. Like there's a Samuel L. Jackson show that's on Apple TV Plus right now, and nobody gives a fuck because they didn't advertise for it. And now I just heard this week there is a new show called Roar that is going to be dropped on Apple TV Plus on April 15th, which is a new Nicole Kidman show, and nobody knew this show existed until this week.
What the fuck are they doing?
Yeah, it's just like, what the fuck? And
yeah, Issa Rae, Nicole Kidman, Alison Brie, these are real fucking stars, and that's what's infuriating about Apple TV Plus, because they are getting all the people that all the other companies want to work with, people that have built-in fan bases or are just pedigreed film or TV people. And then what do they do with them? They aren't, like you said, they're not doing good promotion. They're just pooping shit out. They're just, it's very nonsensical for a company that is the most profitable company in the world to be treating content so like arbitrarily and without care. Whereas like a company like Netflix, like that's all that they fucking care about is like just gobbling up as much shit as possible and making sure you know about it. It's bizarre. Yeah. It's a very bizarre. I wondered what is there to whistleblow about Apple TV Plus? Well, apparently all of that. In other news, sorry.
I was just gonna say to just kind of cap it off. I would recommend anybody to go read that article, because there's a bunch of other stuff in there, including like stuff about like paychecks not clearing.
Oh god,
stuff like
Don't
that.
Even fucking get me started on that, dude.
Yeah.
Like I unfortunately am contracted through like a temp agency to work for my employer, and the lady whose job it is to get the paperwork from the place I work at and then send it to the payment processor who pays me, just didn't send it this week. So I had to knock on doors and be like, what the fuck? Yeah. Just to get like a debit card that has no connection to my bank account with money on it. Like it was a whole fucking thing. But God, if it happens to the best of us, apparently, because it happens to the people at Apple. But this is kind of a follow-up, to something we had talked about before. But Bruce Willis has officially announced his retirement after an aphasia diagnosis, which, because there was something off about the last year of his career, all the shit he was pumping out, and just how bad he was in it. You could even see earpieces in his ear when he was performing. And it makes you wonder how long this has actually been going on with the guy. But very unfortunate, very sad to hear, because I guess it's a little unexpected that wait, this was actually what was happening with him. It's not just a joke. Yeah. And
it's strange, because this was I think we had mentioned before this about a month ago. Red Letter Media had posted a video about this, and they that was kind of their theory, was that they thought that there was something going on with him, and it's strange that it's actually true. It's very on point of them.
Yeah, and in keeping with that, the Razzies were kind of campaigned to take back the mean things they did by giving him his own fucking category, and they did like rescind his Razzie for worst Bruce Willis performance. And I think they're just going to memory hole that they did that at all. Because you don't want to kick the guy while he's down, but that's the problem of elder exploitation, because that's basically what this is. Like, he wasn't actually able to do what he was being asked to do, but there was somebody around him whispering in his ear being like, we need to bleed every last drop of blood from the rock. Like, there's still blood in this stone, so we're going to get it one way or another. And they just weren't thinking about him, and I guess thinking about his legacy. And instead, I think it puts a giant fucking asterisk on all of those movies. And I almost think it's in poor taste to keep them up. It's kind of like how, the movie that John Candy died on when they were making it, and they basically had to like piece together his performance of like the bits and pieces that they had.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it sucks because one thing people have been doing now is going back and kind of looking at clips of Bruce Willis, doing interviews from the last couple years and stuff like that. And his last big movie was Glass, the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
That's right, yeah.
And there's a like press junket interview online that people have kind of been reposting now, where you can tell, like, this is in 2018, that he is not all there. And there are moments in the interview where he just kind of stumbles his way through questions, and M. Night Shyamalan's sitting right next to him. And M. Night Shyamalan is basically having to sort of pick up the questions for him, like kind of just be like, thanks, Bruce, I'll take it from here, sort of things. And it's kind of it's
like, how clued in was everybody working with him, and for how long? Like, I know Kevin Smith kind of apologized for some of the unkind things he said about making Cop Out with him. Because he's, I guess, is basically insinuating that it may have been going on all the way till then, like 2009 or whenever that was.
Sure. Yeah, and you wonder what caused it too, because I was kind of looking online at the causes of something like this, and it kind of just seems to be two things: either you have a brain tumor, or it's from head trauma, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you wonder, did it happen in all those action movies he was in, or does he legitimately have like a brain tumor right now, and he's kind of on short notice, basically, at this point? So
it's very sad, because it did seem like, because he has a strange family unit, with Demi Moore, but there seemed to be like a warming happening between them and like in their collective family, because I think they cohabitated during COVID just so that everyone could be together. And you almost wonder if it isn't because they know something that the public just isn't being let in on, which is fair, because this just sounds like an awful situation all the way around. So we wish Bruce Willis the best. Cheers to you, sir. We'll never forget everything you've done. And every Christmas, we'll just watch Die Hard, I guess.
Yeah.
To kind of round out the news segment, though, just a brief mention, the New Yorker did an excellent. I read this at work, like on one of my breaks on Thursday, and it was covering Robert Eggers and profiling him while he edited The Northman, which is due out here, in about 20 days or so. In April.
I think 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. Can't fucking wait, because the more, because I misunderstood that this was based on Hamlet. It's deeper than that. It's based on the story that Hamlet is based on, which is a very Robert Eggers thing to do. Because he's very primal, and he's like primary sources only. When it comes to these kinds of things. But yeah, a very interesting, exploration of who this guy is and what makes him tick. But what was your big takeaway from reading this, and how excited has it gotten you to actually see The Northman in theaters?
Yeah, so my big takeaway is just kind of how candid he is about the process of getting this thing to the theaters, because he speaks very candidly about the test screening and like the re-editing process. And there's a bit in there, probably the best bit in the entire article, about a test screening they had where one audience member wrote, "You have to have a master's degree in Viking history to get any of this movie."
Which is nonsense. This person just doesn't understand formalism.
I'm sure that they're being a little like facetious, but it's interesting that they wrote that. And the word now is that New Regency, the distributor, is getting very antsy about this movie because the budget's ballooned to about 90 million, and they told him straight up that they want it to be strange and unusual, but they need it to be marketable too. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of a gut check for this movie, because way back when we had talked about the original trailer for this, I had kind of made mention that I think this is going to be Robert Eggers' sort of gateway into the more wider film audience, where I think this is going to be his most accessible movie. And it's just kind of interesting that they're saying stuff like this now, and it's coming straight from him. And
yeah,
so it'll be interesting.
It will be, because he's an exacting filmmaker, obviously, and he's very committed to doing things in an authentic way, and it just sounds like it's right up his alley in terms of like the other films he's made and how he made them. But it like you say, most accessible because it's a story that we're at least tangentially familiar with, is a wide audience. Everyone kind of gets the gist about what Hamlet is, even if they haven't ever seen the play, let alone a movie version of it. Like, if they've seen Sons of Anarchy, they've seen Hamlet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is him doing for like he did for The Witch, and for like a Edgar Allan Poe story, like doing an original Poe basically with The Lighthouse, because they never actually technically adapted the Poe story. That was just their jumping off point. But yeah, taking some sort of text, from like he considers himself an Anglophile, so something that would matter to like British history or to like early American history, and just taking it to a very brutal place and a bizarre place. It sounds like there's lots of weird pagan rituals in this. Like, obviously we got Bjork as a witch on screen there, just looking fucking terrifying. But there's all kinds of weird details in the article about like where they sourced the designs for headdresses worn by like Nicole Kidman's character and things like that. But what caught my eye was all of the one-shots that are apparently in this movie. Like, specifically just these really brutal, like Viking raids that are just all done in one sweeping take, which I love. I love that kind of shit. And film buffs tend to like film Reddit. Like, they come whenever a movie does a really long one shot. And so if it's going to appeal to that crowd for sure, but God, it's going to be hard to make, $90 million back in this day and age at the theater with something that isn't a Marvel movie, as much as he poo-poos Marvel content. And it's like I set aside my Marvel comics and started reading old Scrimshaws instead, or like whatever it was. But interesting dude, and and I love that he's just a complete nerd, and also just a hipster doofus. You gotta have those people.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, and we will most certainly be talking about that movie when it comes out in 2 weeks.
Oh God, I can't wait. Really can't wait for it. But something that you talk about promotion. Netflix really didn't promote this movie either. But as soon as I realized who was involved in it, I was fucking down like a clown. And I couldn't wait to to check it out. But from the director of The One I Love, which is one of the more memorable little what you would call it? It's like a romantic thriller almost, like a high concept.
I think it's mumblecore, right?
Mumblecore, definitely a mumblecore romantic thriller. But it's kind of in that same milieu. It's a movie called Windfall. I'm pulling the trailer up right now, but it's starring Jason Segel, Jesse Plemons. What's the actress's name again?
Lily Collins.
Lily Collins, yeah. And co-written by Andrew Kevin Walker, the gentleman behind a lot of the like Seven, and I believe he wrote The Game as well. Unless I'm remembering.
That sounds right.
Sounds about right. But what did you think about this movie, Matt?
Yeah, so I had originally watched this about 2 weeks ago, but I didn't put it on the podcast for last week because I honestly don't have much to say about it. Yeah. I thought it was okay. I think it kind of is a like short film premise stretched out over 90 minutes.
Okay.
And there were some things I liked about it though. Like I like Jesse Plemons being able to play against type as kind of a douchey tech bro. And you almost would think that the roles of Jesse Plemons and Jason Segel should be flopped.
Yeah.
Because, Jason Segel seems more like that type. And then Jesse Plemons seems kind of like the bumbling burglar sort of. And, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. I don't know. I guess what did you think of it? You seem a little more high on it than I do.
Not necessarily high. It was because that's the thing. It sounds really good on paper when like you're just being introduced to it. You're seeing the trailer. Like I saw the trailer for it. I was like, oh, okay, this is unexpected. I'm into it, I guess. But as it goes on, it is very slight. It's definitely not as like there's nothing to come back to for this movie, which is which is surprising considering all the people involved in it. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, what was going to be the twist. This isn't high concept at all. It's very Hitchcockian, but it's basically just a stage play done in like an hour and a half. And there really isn't a lot of really memorable sequences or visuals in it. But I'm sure this didn't cost very much to make. But I did when it was over, I was just kind of like, that's it? This is all I'm getting? Okay. All right. Whatever. And I just moved on with my life. But I figured we should talk about it just because it, sometimes there's things that are just duds that should have more potential to them. And while this might be good just to have on before you pass out, that's really all it's good for. But I was going to ask you, we can kind of stay away from specific spoilers, but the one thing that really seems to divide people about this movie is the ending. So sort of what did you make of that? What did you think of the ending? It wasn't really unexpected. They kind of telegraph it just in the conversations between two of the characters. It becomes pretty clear that things could go a certain direction. And while it seems like they were building up to some kind of big like cultural statement or like a political statement, it just kind of fell apart for me and boiled down to like a weird like feminist one, if anything. Yeah. And it didn't really resonate with me too much, but that's because I'm a man. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it kind of fell a little flat on its face with that ending.
Good premise, but it didn't really go anywhere interesting. Mm-hmm. But also released on streaming was a little movie that we almost went to the theaters to see. Back when it was gonna be in theaters. I don't know, maybe because Jackass Forever, it's now on Paramount Plus. You watched it. I've tried to get Angie to watch it a few times, and she's just not interested. We watched Indiana Jones instead. So how was Jackass Forever?
It was fun. It was, I really, I grew up with this show and these movies, and I was kind of the prime age for them. And I think you were too. And I kind of ate them up when I was a kid, and I still really enjoy it. And it's very, very fun for the most part. And I think the best segments in the movie are the ones that are a little more creative. I don't really like when they like lean into like the stuff that just is like, how can we hurt ourselves in the most basic way possible?
Yeah.
Like there's kind of a lot of filler in the movie, and there's one moment where they basically take Chris Pontius's dick and they encase it in like a thing that flattens it. So
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that kind of thing. I guess.
They basically turn his dick into a ping pong paddle, and it's really really gross. And
oh my god, why?
It's just kind of filler, and but then there's other segments that are really really like creative. Like there's one where they all drink a gallon of milk that's been dyed different colors with food coloring, and then they get on a merry-go-round and they spin them really fast, and they all start puking. They all start puking different colored milk. And
okay.
So that was probably one of my favorite segments. But the more creative they get with it, the funnier it is. And it was fun. It was really really fun. It was great to see all the guys back, and the only thing that kind of sucks is there's kind of a little tinge of sadness to everything because of how many of the original Jackass crew aren't in this.
Yeah.
Because obviously Ryan Dunn died, and then Bam Margera has had some trouble with like substance abuse issues, and then there's a bunch of like smaller players that aren't in it either, like that used to be in the old show and used to be in the proto Jackass, which was CKY.
Yeah, Can't Kill Yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's kind of sad in that respect, because you kind of at certain points in the movie you realize how few of them there are left in this original group, but it's mostly fun.
Well, I'll have to check it out, because I actually didn't get to watch a lot of Jackass as a youth. I loved the first two movies that they did, because I grew up in a home without cable. I only had VHS tapes and DVDs. I was lucky to have that. And if I got a chance to watch MTV, I would check it out. But yeah, we kind of missed the boat, so like I didn't get as much of a connection to it. But like you say, the sadness that is there, because like they're never going to do one of these again. They're all too old, and their bodies can't take it anymore. Like that clip of Steve-O like with a fucking neck brace on, with LAPD nearby. It's like, oh shit, what did they do? But I'll probably check it out someday, like on one of my last Fridays that I got here, when I'm just at home doing laundry. I think that's a good use for this movie.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And they just uploaded, actually, like 2 days after they put this movie up, all the seasons of the TV show are now on Paramount Plus also.
Well, there you go. I can just go back through. I can just journey through time and watch it all, along with, episodes of Jersey Shore. And speaking of Apple TV Plus, going back to all their successes and their lack of hype for things, their hype building is lacking. We have a fucking show with fucking Gary Oldman doing spy shit, and they didn't tell me about it. How is Slow Horses? What is this thing about?
Yeah, it's kind of think like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Exactly.
But what if all of the people in the show were fuck-ups, basically? Okay,
so it's kind of a workplace comedy? To an extent?
Bit, yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely... It's not as serious as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and basically what the premise is... MI5 has a subdivision where they send all of their like fuck-up agents called Slow House.
Okay.
And Gary Oldman heads up that division. He's kind of the leader, and he's just kind of a huge asshole. And to kind of give you an idea of what the feel of this show is, what the comedic sort of undertones to it are. The very first scene that you see Gary Oldman in, he's sleeping in his office, and then he farts and wakes himself up from his farts. So that's kind of the tone, I guess.
I'm here for it. I love that vibe.
Yeah. So there's only 2 episodes so far, and I watched them both, and I'm really kind of digging where the show's going, and but there isn't really a whole lot that's happened yet. Sort of the central through line of the show has been set up, but that's about it. So
gotcha. Yet again, like the Apple TV makes stuff that makes me want to subscribe, but they gotta tell me about it at least ahead of time so I can anticipate this, you know, and be on board for it. Yeah, very intriguing.
Yeah, and speaking of shows where you don't know where they're going, episode 1 of Moon Knight I watched.
As did I, as I was working on all the graphics for today. That was something. That was a premiere, I guess. What were you like? And speaking of like opening shots, I'm just gonna spoil this for anyone who hasn't seen it. That's Ethan Hawke, right? That's Ethan Hawke's villain character taking a slug of whiskey, breaking the glass, putting it in some shoes, and then just like walking out a door, and that's how you start this show. Like, and you have no fucking clue how, why, or who, but that's what's going on.
Well, see, that's kind of the theme of this, I think. I mean, I'm kind of skeptical of anybody who has that definitive of a opinion of this show at this point, because I don't know what the fuck is going on. Yeah. It's all like, there's no exposition. It's all just like, it's the only thing we know so far is Oscar Isaac works in a museum gift shop. He blacks out for certain periods of time, and Ethan Hawke is the leader of some sort of cult. Yeah. And then you get one shot of Moon Knight at the end of the episode, and that's it. There's no exposition. There's no this first episode was so light on plot. You're just like, what is? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it is just things happening. Yeah. And because he blacks out and will just wake up with a broken jaw and not know why, and then just like pick himself up and think, oh, today's Friday, when it's like actually it's Sunday. Like, that's the recurring theme throughout it, is that he has no clue who he is or where he is and what's going on either. And like it is, we have no clue what to make of this yet, and there's really not much to say about it. But I do like Oscar Isaac, well enough, but his sad sack little ancient Egypt obsessed candy salesman, character, there obviously is more going on there, but I just don't know. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I think the only definitive thing I can say about the show right now is it has very bad CG. Very, very bad CG. Like that chase sequence, those cars looked like paper mache at times. And nothing has weight to it in this show, which is maddening. And but I guess Moon Knight himself looked pretty cool. Yeah. But some of the shots of like the bone, like the bird bone mask entity, that was kind of spooky. But yeah, there's only 7 more episodes of this, right? Or is this a 6-episode show? 5. 5 more. Yeah. So they got a lot of fucking work to do. Yeah. Well, moving on to the main event of the afternoon. Nitram was kind of a darling at the Cannes Film Festival. Justin Kurzel's latest film. IFC Films obviously picked it up, and it is an interesting movie. I'll just say that out the front. Like these things are always kind of, you're walking a knife's edge as an artist if you're going to be touching a real world event that hurt so many people. But this is one of those true crime stories that just has such a bizarre, cast of real human beings in it that it gets fascinating. Like, this could almost have been Tiger King if it wasn't so fucking tragic. You know what I mean? But what was your takeaway
after watching this?
Yeah, so just to kind of give a little background, this is about Martin Bryant, the Australia's, I think, largest mass shooter.
And the one.
Yeah. So, and this film was kind of shunned by its native Australia. It only opened in 3 theaters in the entirety of the continent.
That is insane.
Yeah. And they refused to advertise the movie on any sort of TV stations or magazines or what have you. So despite its accolades at Cannes, that's kind of how it was received there. And then just this week, on Wednesday, it was kind of unceremoniously dumped on video on demand here in the US to very little fanfare. But
yeah, it's just unfortunate because it's a very well-made movie and the performances are very powerful. And the subject matter, I would say, is actually handled very delicately. Even though he tiptoes right up to the moment, when the act itself occurs. What did you make of because it's basically, if there's an arc to it, it's just showing the struggles of these 2 parents to handle their mentally kind of troubled son who's delayed intellectually and socially, would rather goof around with grade school boys than hang out with anyone his own age. Everyone who deals with him just fucking hates him and is just infuriated by him even before he starts acting out. But as soon as he starts acting out, everyone just fucking shuts down on him. Even his own folks to an extent. But he eventually winds up trying, because he wants to buy things. His mom just is fed up with this, buying him all the toys and trinkets he wants. So he starts harassing people into letting him mow their lawns, which is very awkward and kind of cringy. But then he happens upon this lady who's probably just as mentally disturbed as he is, whose family won the lottery, and she's just a crazy dog lady living in a mansion alone. And he just kind of becomes a part of her life. And I wish that more time had been spent on that relationship. But I guess they did as much as they needed to.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, this film, it's not a very technically wise or filmmaking wise, it's not a very flashy movie.
No.
It hinges pretty much entirely on the performances, and his performance is incredible. Caleb Landry Jones's, but then also the woman who plays the wealthy heiress, Essie Davis, who people will recognize as the lead from The Babadook.
That was her big coming out party to American audiences for sure.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, she was great. And their relationship, it was just so it was so compelling because it was so strange. And the scenes where they sort of confront his parents with their sort of friendship.
Yeah.
It was so strange and so off-putting because I guess to talk about the performances again, the people who played the parents, I believe their name, the mom's name is Judy Davis, and the dad's name is I think it's Anthony LaPaglia.
Yeah. Without a trace. I didn't even know the dude was Australian until he appeared in this and was just talking like an Aussie. Then I wikied him and I was like, oh, okay, all right, now I understand you a little bit better. But excellent. In his little collapse, the father's collapse was, because it kind of gives you the hint that there was something already wrong, with the father to begin with, and it just, things just get passed on, one way or another, and nobody handles their mental well-being very well in this story, unfortunately, and it does kind of veer kind of into inauthentic political pandering in some sequences, more particularly the end titles, where he kind of disingenuously plays it off that like more people in Australia have guns than after the laws put in place after the Port Arthur shooting. Like you pointed out in your write-up, the reality is just that there are fewer people who own guns, but they just own more guns than ever.
Yeah. The people who are buying guns are buying more than ever. Yeah. And but the actual, like, I think the actual figures are gun ownership has gone down. I want to make sure I get this right here. People with a gun license in Australia has dropped 48%, and households with at least one gun has dropped 75%.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because he clearly wanted to end his movie with some sort of like cinematic mic drop moment, and he did. And you know, that's what he thinks he's doing, but it's almost as if there should be an asterisk on that.
Yeah.
And,
but who wants to take the time to, you know, really pour into, if a based on true story movie is being 100% true to the facts, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, especially when you're dealing with the polemic, you make something like this to get a message across. And, you know, like you compared this movie to Mass, which, you know, very like refreshingly focused more so just on what was at hand in the human experience of, you know, having, you know, someone be lost in a shooting like that. And that maybe was the touch missing from this movie, because while there is some sympathy to be had for Martin Bryant, you know, like as, you know, he was trying to find his way in life, the moment that, you know, his violent tendencies, because this movie doesn't really go into it, but he was going to therapists his entire life, and there was deep concern from those therapists about the violence that he had within himself and the aggression that he had within himself. He talked about killing people a lot, you know, until he actually did. And instead, they just make him in this movie seem like somebody who just wanted to go surfing, you know, and to have bros. But he didn't know how, but ultimately that's why he did what he did, because even when he traveled the world and it didn't matter where he went, you know, like the real man couldn't connect with any other real human beings, and except for this weird lady who basically had nobody else either. And that, in a very fascinating movie with, you know, very powerful performances, and the horror that the movie like brings you to the precipice of, you know, like it takes you right up to the moment before he starts shooting, basically. And that did kind of have, you know, like my heart in my like in my throat, you know, like not being able to breathe, because it was like, holy, like, are they gonna fucking do it? Because that would feel like a pretty ballsy move to make, and or at least just have like gunshots in the background or something. But this movie isn't Elephant, you know, the real like mass shooting movie that really went that far by not really baking it about the real event, you know, because that movie has a complicated reception as well. But yeah, one thing that kind of strikes me about that is you were talking about kind of where the movie takes you, and it's interesting how they kind of focus on, I mean, I don't think he had the mental capacity to actually plan this out. And it's crazy how, you know, just kind of on a whim, it was done. There's no master plan. Yeah. There is no, like, it's like frighteningly simple for something like this to happen. Like he just kind of decides one day and it just happens. And it's very like simple to happen, and he doesn't really think about it all that much. Like he just goes to the cafe and has his like last meal, which is literally like a cup of juice,
mixed fruit. And like it was very striking in that way, where it just kind of came out of nowhere, because I was watching it and you expect there to be some sort of lead up to that scene, and there really isn't. Like he puts his gun kind of in his trunk, but then he goes out to that that piece of land that his dad wanted to buy, and he kills the people there. And so that was kind of the thing that clued me into the fact that, like, oh, okay, this is happening. Like,
it's going down. Yeah. And like when he tries to give that gun to that surfer guy, like I wasn't sure if that was gonna like really be the I guess that technically is the buildup to it all. But no, that is a very good point, because this guy wasn't Derek Harris or Dylan Klebold, and he certainly wasn't any of these other like mass shooters around the world and in the United States who did have like a master plan and a manifesto to go along with it. This guy wasn't, like you said, he didn't have the capacity. A simple man with just a straightforward way of viewing the world and his problems and how to deal with them. Like, he expects that when his dad loses out on that bed and breakfast, all he's got to do is just show up with a bag full of money and they'll give it to him. But they're not going to do that. They bought this. They want to live here, and you can't just throw money at a problem and get what you want all of the time. But you can hop on a plane and go to Los Angeles, but that doesn't make you feel better. That doesn't solve their problems with relating to the world. And it kind of just leaves you still wondering, it's like, how could this have been prevented? Beyond just, taking firearms, out of access to the public, or, having better mandated reporting when deeply concerning issues are arising in a therapist's office. Yeah.
It's interesting, because I do think the movie does lean a little bit onto the side of that the media often takes with, what can we look for in the person's life as like why this happened, like who's responsible in this person's life for this happening, or what piece of media is responsible or whatever. And I think they oftentimes the whole idea of personal responsibility especially with American sensibilities towards these type of tragedies, personal responsibility is kind of shunned aside. It's like, we want to look for somebody else to blame, or something else to blame. And I think the movie does a little bit of that, where, he every single day of his life, at least in the movie, it seemed like he was rubbing up against somebody that could have had the capacity to raise objections to what he was doing, but they didn't, because they either didn't care or they cared, but they were so fed up with him. Because
like you look at his like that the mom, like the how she was portrayed in this movie reminded me of the parents of that Michigan school shooting that happened recently, where the parents are being held responsible legally, like they're prosecuting them for not taking action that the warning signs that they were being made aware of, said that they should take. Like they really were just checked out and more concerned with other things. I mean, you don't really get the sense that she's more concerned with because she doesn't really have anything going on either. But it's like she's just tried her son's entire life to try and build and craft some sort of existence for him, but she just has nothing left. And she couldn't keep her husband from falling into despair, and she's basically just on the precipice of it herself, by all accounts.
That was I wanted to make special mention of that. That was a brilliant piece of casting for that lady, for the mom, because she has such a like worn, leathery, wrinkled face that she looks like somebody who is just like done. Like she looks like she is just completely like aged and like over it. And just brilliant piece of casting just on look alone,
because she didn't have to do much to act either. It's like you said, they just put the camera on her and that's enough, because she's just wizened by like all the things she's had to do, all the fights she's had to have, all the situations she's had to like calm down, because he's pissed somebody off or gone into some store and caused a ruckus, and she's had to get him out of there and pay for damages. It's like, long suffering doesn't even describe the look of this woman. It's beyond that. But I guess I had like kind of like with Windfall, I had higher hopes for what this could be. Like Snowtown is a very memorable movie, especially for a true crime one. But that is, I guess, a sexier true crime story than this one, because like this is just one of those stories that just is sad because so many children died during the event. So many, obviously everyone who is innocent. Like if you look at, like who was killed, like at the Port Arthur massacre, and that was like a big drive, to suppress any media access to Martin Bryant in the real world. Like he couldn't even have a radio in prison with him because they didn't want him hearing news reports on, his case or anything like that. The one time a reporter got into the cell with him and recorded an interview, the authorities took the tapes and burned it in front of him.
Oh wow! Okay,
like
I didn't know that.
That is how intense Australia is on not giving this guy any of what, like here in the West, a lot of like serial killers tend to get, like BTK in particular. He was like getting off being in court describing the things he did. It's almost like the next stage of them of their lives as the monsters they are is reveling in their horror and making sure that there's this kind of icky aspect to being an enthusiast of true crime because of that. And that's why Last Podcast on the Left or like My Favorite Murder aren't making an episode on this, and that's why I felt like it took bravery to make a movie on it. And I guess I can just understand why like this isn't for everybody, because going in, if you didn't know too much about it, there's probably a lot to get out of this movie, but it's just eventually you're just left with what reality gives you anyway, which is just like, why would this happen? Why would anybody do this? And this movie really doesn't, I think, fully explore that question as deeply as maybe they could have.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, you make a good point that it's very much kind of a presentation of how things happened, and in many ways you could get the exact same effect by just like reading the Wikipedia article for the event or for this guy, and so but yeah, I think I would recommend it based on the performances. I think that's kind of the linchpin for me, is that's the thing that makes the movie worth watching. And especially Caleb Landry Jones, and he won. We had mentioned, I think earlier, he won the Best Actor award at Cannes for it, and definitely well deserved for a guy that usually gets relegated to like character actor roles.
God, yeah. Like I was trying to think, like, what is the last movie he was in before he did this?
I don't know. I think wasn't he in? It's not a movie, but wasn't he in like American Horror Story at one point?
Oh yeah, he definitely was. He was in 3 Billboards. Yeah, I remembered him from X-Men First Class. And
that's right.
He was Banshee in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been in all kinds of things, obviously. But like in recent times, a lot of things I haven't checked out. Like a lot of more obscure movies. Like Welcome to Stranger, The Dead Don't Die. I'm trying to see if because I guess I don't see him being in American Horror Story. He was in Twin Peaks: The Return.
Okay.
And for a little bit in Breaking Bad.
Sure.
Apparently.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good for him to kind of get a starring role, and I look forward to kind of seeing where his career goes.
Because that's the thing. Good showcase for his talents. And I hope he doesn't get ignored just because this film is controversial. And Anthony LaPaglia too. You can't undersell what's going on with him, like that little freak out that he has in the car when he basically gets told we already sold it, we're not selling it to you.
Yeah.
And he just has to take it and just that was really powerful. So if you have any interest in this kind of event, this movie is I would say it honors to an extent you know, the lives lost in the incident just by directing people towards the fact that it happened at all, because it's not talked about quite enough, despite it being, you know, one of the more infamous instances of an act like this.
Yeah, highly recommend. And I think I'm done with mass shooter and movies for a while. Between this Mass and Ted K.
Yeah, we've had our fill. You know, we kind of need a palate cleanse, which is why next week we're fucking watching Ambulance.
Yeah.
But along with Ambulance coming out next week, what else can we expect to see in theaters and at home? We have Sonic the Hedgehog 2, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was telling Chuck before we started, this is otherwise going to be known as the film that made Jim Carrey quit acting, because he announced this week that he will be retiring. So I guess it's a good as any movie to go out on, I guess. Yeah. I mean, like, can you imagine if they had made a Sonic movie in the 90s and had Jim Carrey playing Dr. Robotnik? Like, it seems possible. And, sure. Golly, this looks wacky and ridiculous, and I am here for it. But we also have Metal Lords. What the fuck is Metal Lords? Yeah, this one's weird. The reason why I put it on here is because it's kind of a strange amalgamation of things.
Oh,
it's
it's got
R-rated. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's an R-rated coming-of-age movie. Written by D.B. Weiss, one of the co-creators of Game of Thrones, and directed by Peter Solley, the guy who directed, I don't know if you're familiar with this movie, but Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Oh, really? And Tom Morello is an executive producer, of course. We got Stranger Kids Bro in it. We have a bunch of other baby faces.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like, and it's about like from what I understand, two high schoolers who decide to start a metal band because they want to win the battle of the bands at their school. So, I mean, pretty generic premise, I guess. But
yeah, but if it's I don't know, it seems like something Jack Black should have been involved in, you know?
Yeah,
but I guess
this seems very like early 2010s to me. Like,
it's like, cartoony.
Yeah, like do you remember the movie Charlie Bartlett?
I do, yes.
Yeah, the Anton Yelchin movie. So it's kind of, I don't know, it just seems cut from that cloth, like very, very.
So did D.B. Weiss have this sitting on his hard drive? Brett Gelman's in it for like 20 years, and he's just like dusting it off since he didn't get Star Wars anymore.
Probably.
Very interesting. And we also got Tokyo Vice getting, I guess all we had was a title, and now this fucking thing is coming out. So I think this kind of has the same problem that we've been bemoaning for Apple TV. Like, we didn't know much about this before it was announced, but Michael Mann directed the pilot. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, this is.
Fuck yeah, dude. He hasn't done that since Luck, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It looks awesome, I think. I mean, if anybody doesn't know, this is based on a book from a journalist. His name is Jake Edelstein, who he was a reporter, one of the first English reporters in Japan in, I think, the early 90s, who infiltrated the Yakuza to do some reporting on them. And yeah, I think this looks awesome, honestly. And
we got Ken Watanabe, and I'm not sure who else is in the cast. But,
I think I saw Rinko Kikuchi from Pacific Rim and Babel. And another kind of interesting thing to note about this is Michael Mann directs the pilot, but all the other episodes are directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who is the guy who did Short Term 12 and then did Shang-Chi most recently.
Oh, okay.
So,
wow. All right.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Not that I would expect. But before we move on from this, though, I just want to bring up because we had talked about this show, the One Perfect Shot show. Did you watch the Michael Mann episode of that?
No, I haven't seen any of it because of. I mean, I want to watch that one, but the other episodes I'm so put off by.
Oh god! Well, I only watched the Michael Mann one, and I have to report that even that is like made lame. Unfortunately, like
really?
Yeah, because it's way too short. You know, like that's what I'll put out there. It's like they have 30-minute runtime. You have like 15 to 20 minutes of Michael Mann's career. And then you have like 10 minutes to get to know all of the other like technical, artists who like edited and shot, like who are the cinematographers, who the editors were on it, like his creative partners in making the perfect shot, and just what their philosophies were and what it was like to work on the movie. And by the time you get to the like what the quote unquote one perfect shot was, you don't even know what you're watching anymore, because they do these weird like CG recreations of the scene, and they have Michael Mann walk around in it, but there's not enough of that. Like, I wish it had just been him, like, in this, on a green screen, in the scene, dissecting it for 30 minutes. I would have rather have had that. Even though there were some interesting tidbits about, like, what he did before he got into filmmaking, before Miami Vice entered his life. Like, he spent time in Angola making documentaries embedded with warlords. And I want to find that shit. I don't know how I would, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
But God, I can
so
only...
very superficial, basically.
Very powder puffy. And I can only imagine what the Crazy Rich Asians or Girls Trip episodes are like.
Yeah. Oh God. I was talking with somebody on Facebook about it, and I just feel like, oh God, what's her name? The woman who produced this, she has like
Ava DuVernay.
Yeah, she has like the anti-Midas touch, where everything she touches turns to shit, basically. Like.
God, which is too bad because she's so celebrated. But if you're gonna fuck up A Wrinkle in Time, I think that says a lot about you.
Yeah.
Did we have a parting question this week, Matt?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just kind of.
Aha!
I added this at the last minute here. So our parting question going into next week is going to be, if you could own any proper item from a movie, from any movie in history, what would you choose?
And we're talking the actual prop, not a replica, not a commercialized version of it. But if you could get the like official stamp of this is an authentic, this was what the actor held in their hands.
Yeah. Basically something that you would want to actually own. There's no like, I wish for infinite wishes. None of that on this question, because like I don't want to hear you say Rosebud, because then I could sell it for $10 million. None of that. So
yeah, like what do I want to put in the glass case or the shadow box and put on my wall or put into the family vault? Okay, right on. That's fun. All right.
So and then we're doing just another reminder. We're doing Ambulance next week, and we're going to be recording a little earlier next week too.
Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. So just for anybody that catches the live stream and doesn't the uploaded video after the fact, we'll be recording a little earlier, and then also thank you to everybody who watched our last video, because we got a lot more views on that one than a lot of our previous ones. So,
and I don't know who to thank for that. I guess the search function worked in our favor for some reason. And we're a little show. We're happy with our, average of like 12 views an episode. That's who we do this for. But yeah, it's been kind of fun to just see it keep climbing higher and higher and higher. You're the worst person in the world, I guess was more interesting to people than The Matrix, because only 6 fucking people watched that episode. But yeah, huge thank you to everyone who found us. I hope we did pick up one new subscriber in that burst of people, and that was fun. So we're going to be watching Ambulance next week. Thanks, Matt. We'll see you all next week, everybody.
Yep. See ya.